أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب يسرني علما رب ارزقني علما اللهم صل على محمد كما على إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. A big part of taking our power back, there are two parts to this. One is power. The more important part of it is back. And I want to begin with back part of it first. Because the question more than anything that we are asked to ask ourselves on a consistent basis is, who have we and what have we given our power away to that we now need it back from? So I'll go to the power part of it later. Because the back part of it, taking our power back part of it, is the beginning of the expression of our faith. La ilaha illallah. La. The first word of our expression of faith is La, which is Nahi. The first part of our expression of faith is a Nafi. Nahi. And somehow when we think, I'm going to come to it, but somehow when we think of faith, we think of the positives of it. We think of the light of it. We think of the empowered version of it. We think of the tawakkul of it. We think of the istiqamat of it. We think of the steadfastness of it. We think of the qiyam of it. But the first word that we utter as an expression of our faith is nahi. No. No Allah, no God, la, nahi. It could have begun with illallah, but it is la ilah. No God. Now, no is a powerful, powerful, powerful expression of faith. And no is a powerful, powerful, powerful part of our journey. Because the ability to say no comes from a lifetime of experiences lived. And the ability to say no does not come from living on top of a tree or in a cave or in the mountain or in seclusion or without relationships. In supreme solitude meditation, in monasteries even. If you're born in a monastery, then you don't have the power to say no. You see? The power to say no comes from having lived a lifetime of experiences which we don't want. Lifetimes of experiences which are not aligned with the truth of us. And no, the power of saying no is an important intrinsic part of our journey of reclaiming our faith. In simple words, we have to start with the assumption we have lost our faith. And we have to, in losing our faith, we've been exposed to a multitude of experiences. And there will come a time when we'll have the power to say no to them. And I was watching this beautiful video. Sometimes the simplest things just stay with you. And it's like, एक गहरा 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 कुआं है जिसमें किसी ने पत्थर डाल दिया और वो पत्थर will now create infinite ripples because there is no end to the depth of that well, and that stone is falling infinitely. And it was so beautiful. And they said, in the time that we say no, something magical happens. We say yes, or we develop the capability to say a deeper yes. Subhanallah. In our ability to say no, when we say no, we develop the ability to say a deeper yes. Within that no. But we have to understand the no. We have to understand the shadows. We have to walk in the darkness to be able to say no. And we have to give ourselves the grace to be able to do that, because once we have been walking on a path where a lot of things are not aligned for us, and we begin to see them as things which are not aligned for us. And in that moment, when we say no, that is La ilaha illallah. And so I was having a conversation with a friend, because the word Sufism, the entire principle of Sufism and Beth comes with a lot of loaded meanings. Right. So the entire concept of Sufism and Beth come with loaded meaning, which means, oh, does Sufism mean, so how, this is how he said it. He said, so is Sufism an offshoot of the Quran? And is Beth pledging our allegiance to another power than Allah? And I was like, okay, Sufism is, if we have to give it a name at all, but Sufism is a deeper understanding of Quran. We are so used to, as people, looking at things laid out in a line on a table, that we don't understand, or we don't train ourselves to understand the depth of those things. So when Quran as a book is on the first dimension, everything exists in dimensions. Quran as a book is on the first dimension. Then there is a second dimension to it, and there's a third dimension, and a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth, and a seventh. There are dimensions, and which is why it is a living miracle, which is why it will always be relevant to every insan who will ever live till the end of time, because it is a multi-dimensional book of hikmah. It is multi-dimensional hikmah. And let's not even limit it to a book. It's multi-dimensional hikmah. And it being a book is the first dimensional part of it. So the same way that we are human beings in the 3D, but we are Ruh first, which has access to all dimensions. And so when Quran is given to us, it has access to all of our dimensions. That means it cannot just exist in the first or the second or the third dimension. Yes, the trees understand it. Yes, the stones understand it. But they could not understand, could not hold the frequency of it. Mountains could not hold the frequency of Quran. And therefore, the human heart was created to be able to hold the frequency of Quran, which is a multidimensional hikmah and a multidimensional frequency. And our heart is a multidimensional frequency. And so when this heart learns to say no to what is not for it, subhanallah, that is Beth. Because what is Beth? It is what we talked about earlier. It is, and we can make that Beth to us every day, ourselves every day, to our hearts every day. What is Beth? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And what is Beth? What is La ilaha illallah? I make a promise. I pledge my allegiance. Ya Allah, I stand witness. Forget pledge my allegiance. I stand witness. जब हम लोग बच्चे थे और हमारे कान में अजान दी गई थी, we already knew the frequency of Allah. And so that azan feels, it's the most comforting sound you can hear in a strange land. Say you've just shifted to the Czech Republic and you hear somebody speaking in Punjabi and Urdu. And it's the first time you're hearing somebody speaking in Punjabi, and it just warms your heart. It's like, this is familiar, this is home. And so azan for that child is familiar and home. But as we begin to grow older, we begin to forget our familiarity and what home feels like. And as we begin to forget, we call it the path of understanding what we don't want to say, what we want to say no to. So that is the journey of discovering what is not aligned for us, the journey of no. But we have still not reclaimed the power yet to be able to say no to it. We begin to drift into the stream of the world. We begin to be tugged and pulled at. We look at this beautiful glittering circus and we say, wow, this is so beautiful. I want to go inside that tent, and I want to go inside that tent. I want to experience this. I want to experience it all. And I want to have candy floss, and I want to have candy like there is no end to it. And I will just live all parts of the circus right now. And this is a continuous life cycle that we live. But through this life cycle, there comes a time when we are given the opportunity to say, okay, you have lived this life cycle. What do you now want to say yes to? And for us to be able, does this work for you? Is this aligned for you? Is this bringing you peace? Are you being able to sleep at night? Is your heart at rest? Are your eyes cool? It's a very beautiful thing, huh? Are your eyes cool? Aankhon ki thandak. Are your eyes cool? Are your hands at rest? Because mostly ours tremble. Are you being able to rest in one space without any distraction? Are you able to stay silent? Are you able to hear when there is no sound, the original sound of divine? So when we asked all of these questions, and the answer is no, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. This moment, no, I am not okay, is a moment of a no. Because when you know you're not okay, you know you are actually saying a yes to, okay, now bring for me what is of benefit to me. So when you say I'm not okay, when you say I'm not at rest, you say that I don't have ठहराव, you say I don't have सकून, मेरे अंदर हिम्मत नहीं है, मुझे नहीं समझ आ रहा, मेरे अंदर सकून नहीं है, मेरे दिल के अंदर गुस्सा है, मेरी ज़बान सख्त है, मेरे हाथ सख्त है, मेरा दिल सख्त है. When you're saying all of these things, you're saying कि I am not okay. No, I am not okay. This opportunity is the opportunity you are given, which is why these tower moments, these wake-up calls, the most beautiful wake-up calls for you to take breath. And what is breath? Breath is no. La ilaha. There is no God. La ilaha. But Allah. And in that moment, when you say that kalima, look at the power with which you have said it. Feel that as eyes which have seen 25 circus shows versus eyes which have seen none. And when eyes which have seen 25 circus shows say, I don't want a single one of this circus, and those eyes close then to look at apne andar ka ki duniya, that power versus eyes which have never seen a circus tent, whose eyes are perpetually closed, which is when we are born, looking inwards to our Allah. So because we take our faith for granted, right? We say, हम तो Muslim पैदा हुए हैं, हमारे पास तो इस्लाम का गिफ्ट है. बट इस्लाम का गिफ्ट और मुस्लिम पैदा होना में हमने कभी कोई सर्कस देखा ही नहीं. तो हमारी तो आंखें अंदर ही थी जब हमारे कान में अजान दी गई थी, हमें तो मिल गया तोहफा. बट उस तोहफे को अपनी अवेयरनेस में लेकर आना, उस तोहफे की कदर करना. आई रिमेंबर this Quran teacher that I was with, beautiful, and she said, said, how do you do the qadr of Allah? She had done an entire lecture on the qadr of Allah. It's like, kaise qadr kare unki? How do we weigh, because we're used to measuring things when we want to find out their worth, right? How do we measure his worth? And how do we do right by his worth? We cannot. We cannot. But when those eyes which have seen 25 circus tents, they say no, no, no 25 times. And in that moment, when they say La ilaha illallah, they reject those 25 circus tents. What they're saying yes to is to the Allah in them, to the heart of them, to the truth of them, to the haqq of them. Subhanallah, the power of saying the kalima every day. Every day. This is what Beth is. Being in absolute awareness, in constant awareness. And when you forget, when your eye stray towards the circus tent, bring your eye back and say La ilaha, no God but Allah. Why? Because what are those circus tents? Those circus tents are only gods. हमारा ख्याल है कि हमें वो चीज़ बहुत अच्छी लगती है, हमारा ख्याल है हम उस चीज़ को, we have very beautiful names to assign to those circumstances. One would be called trauma attachment, the other one be called love. The third one would be called attraction. The fourth one would be called my basic needs. The fifth one would be called my support system. The seventh one would be called my family. The eighth one would be called my job. The ninth one would be called my paycheck. The 10th one would be called my job title, my career, my business. The 11th one would be called my children. The 12th one, my friends. All of these circumstances, beautiful as they may be, as beneficial as they may be in the limited way that they can be of benefit to you, are at the end of it circumstance, and therefore many ones. And so when we have seen, when our eyes are on those 25 tents, and we say no to this tent, and no to this tent, and no to this tent, and no to this tent, this is La, no God. La ilaha, this rejection, subhanallah, this rejection of all the gods that we have given our power to. And I mean all of them. I mean our deepest relationships. I mean our deepest desires. I mean our deepest loves. No God, I reject you all, subhanallah. So if that is what Beth is. It is not a kalima whispered in your ear. It is a kalima reclaimed. It is a kalima reclaimed after having lived a lifetime of things which do not align for you anymore. And when you say La ilaha, no God, you are saying yes to the one God. And in that rejection of yours, you don't even need to do anything, which is why this kalima, this expression of faith is so, so powerful. You don't have to reject something and then find something. You just reject. You say, no, La ilaha, it's the beginning of your journey home. The rest is Allah's job. You just reject. You just say, no, God. La ilaha illallah. And then Allah will reveal itself to you. Subhanallah. So this journey of rejecting what does not serve us anymore is an essential part of coming to Allah. Without us having something to reject, we are not truly aware of who our Rabb is. In a very loosely built connection, वो कहते हैं ना कि जब हमारे पास कोई चीज़ नहीं होती है तो उसकी ज़्यादा कदर होती है. This is the flip side of it. When you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And that's why 40 is actually the magical age, because the first 40 years is the age of maturity. Also, the first 40 years we live understanding what we don't want. And so our lives may be chaotic. We would have made decisions which don't serve us anymore, which a lot of people, what the modern word calls midlife crisis. Midlife crisis is the age of maturity. Midlife crisis is your opportunity to claim your kalima. Because yes, haza min fazli rabbi. Yes, we have been born into this gift. It is not a religion. So very recently, about 3-4 months ago maybe, I found out that about 3 generations ago, my ancestors had converted from Sikhism to Islam. And you know, I sat down and I said, Allah Ta'ala, अगर मैं इस वक्त मुझे अपना तो पता है, हम सबको अपना पता है. इसलिए अल्लाह ताला, अगर मैं इस वक्त सीख होती, मुझे maybe 101% यकीन है कि मैं कन्वर्ट नहीं कर पाती, मेरे अंदर वो कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है. And so the fact that he knew that about me, and the fact that he enabled somebody else to do it for me so that he could give it to me as a gift. You know, when you send a gift basket to somebody and you do an assortment of things, right? You put wheat that somebody else has grown, and you put honey somebody else has grown, and you put nuts somebody else has picked, and fruit somebody else has picked and grown, and you put it all together and you send somebody that gift basket. And for them, it's a complete gift basket that's of extreme benefit to them, and they love you for it. Their eyes and their thought and our hearts don't go to how each of those ingredients within the gift basket kind of put them in that one basket to be presented to us. We just accept the gift basket and we accept the love with which it's been given. So I'm not saying we're bad Muslims or we're like wrong Muslims. No, we're beautiful Muslims. Absolutely. Subhanallah. The goal is to be aware. The goal is to be aware and to stay guard. Yeah. The goal is to be aware and to stay guard on your iman and to not take it for granted. Because and this is a beautiful hadith where Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says the only constant of iman is the fact that it's not constant. We heard that thing about change, but it's the same principle that applies on आपके जो कल्ब की हालत होती है वो कभी एक नहीं होती है, वो ऊपर ऐसे 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 दिल की हालत की तरफ ऊपर नीचे, कल्ब और दिल एक, so ऊपर नीचे जा रहे होते हैं. And so unless we're not aware of how precious this beat is, how precious this rhythm is of iman that we've been gifted with for no earning of our own, for no effort of our own, how do we then reap benefits from it? Like even the thing that for example, if we are paying 4,000 rupees for a jar of honey, we really like to get into the ingredients. कि कहाँ पे वो बी हाइव कहाँ पे था, उसकी पॉलिनेशन कैसे, बीज को कैसे रखा गया था, फिर उनकी ट्रांसपोर्ट कैसे हुई, जार जो है वो शहद जो है वो मिट्टी का है, शहद का जार जो है मिट्टी का है या शीशे का है या प्लास्टिक है. All of these things contribute to the value of that honey. And so when we reject what does not align for us, la ilaha, we have to understand the second part of our journey begins, which is illallah. No God. So we understand कि हमने अपनी power in लोगों को, in रिश्तों को, in culture को, इस belief systems को, in corporate systems को, in fears को, in doubts को, they were all circumstance, media को, which is telling us कि ये दुनिया में इतनी किल्लत है, आप इतने less हो और आपके अंदर इतना lack है, हर कोई आपको ये बता रहा है, हमने empower ये सारी circumstance. Then we need to know if we are to reject the circumstance, because we still need to put down our anchors, right? कहाँ हम लोग अपना anchor? Where do we put down our anchor? And if we don't know our Allah, we have nowhere to put down that anchor, which is why most of us are lost. We may have the power to reject what is not aligned for us, but we don't know where to go. Because the space in between, it's this beautiful concept of taskiya nafs as well. And taskiya nafs ke do parts hain. I love things with two parts, but then your duality, I guess. So taskiya nafs ke do parts hain. One is release what does not serve you. Taskiya karo. मतलब उसको निकालो, purify करो, उसको निकालो वो चीजें, reject करो, la ilaha, reject करो. But then there's a second very beautiful part of taskiya nafs, which is, but do not go forth with empty spaces. In the place that you have cleared, plant something of beauty. If most of us may know what does not serve us anymore, but we do not know the second part of taskiya nafs, to what to plant in this place. We may be in the process of purifying our nafs and saying la ilaha, but illallah के दरमियान की जो जगह है, because there is an in-between space of la ilaha and illallah. And this in-between space, this empty space, it asks to do one thing. Okay, beautiful soul, you know what does not align for you anymore. So for example, maybe you have quit certain beverages and certain dietary things from your diet. Maybe you have stopped going to certain places. Maybe you have disconnected from certain people. Maybe you have stopped watching or listening to certain kinds of input. All of those things have done. And now what? And that's where panic sets in. Now what? Where do I go from here? I've rejected, and now what? Not that rejection is easy. Not that rejection is easy. But say we have, and now what? And that is the second part, illallah. And I want us to, because I went to this beautiful big book called Physicians of the Heart, which is written by 4 Sufis. And those 4 Sufis are not inward-looking Sufis, if there was one such thing, but whatever. And I don't like to use the word Sufi also, because it implies that it implies a category. It doesn't connote depth. The deeper, if you can fall deeper within yourself, you are a Sufi. That's what Sufism is. To not look at the breadth of things, but the depth of one thing. और उसी में गुम हो जाओ, उसी में बह जाओ, उसी में गुम रहो. So these 4 Sufis, them are sound healers who have studied in the ancient tradition of Sanskrit sound healing, like पुराने वाले जो राग होते थे. And then a physician, and then a Sufi scholar, and a 4th one was a scientist, if I'm not mistaken, or a historian who's just worked on comparative religion. These 4 got together and they wrote this book called Physicians of the Heart. And I had to take notes for this because, subhanallah, the depth that they have given in the name Allah. So now we're moving to the second part of illallah, la ilaha illallah. So they're saying, and they speak of how the name Allah, so we are going to approach it from 2 aspects. One is the sound. Actually, both of them are the sounds, but one of them are the meanings within each sound. So Allah has 5 letters in it. Alif, Lam, Lam, Alif, Ha. Alif, Lam, Lam, Alif, Ha. 5 letters in it, right? Allah. And they're saying the word Allah in each letter has 5 presences in it. The first presence is in the name, in the letter Alif. And that is the dimension. See, when we speak of dimensions, that is presence dimension. So the first dimension is in the letter Alif, and it is that of the material universe. It's called Nasut. I'm going to write it down. Okay. And this is the presence of Allah in the material universe. Oh. The second Lam is the dimension of Malakut. Self-explanatory, Malaika, but not just angelic realm. The realm of everything unseen. So in the second Lam is the angels, the heavens, hell, Jannat, all the other dimensions that we don't have awareness of from this dimension. Is this only the second Lam? Look at the beauty, or look at the presence of this name Allah. The second Lam is Jabarut, which is the realm of divine power being manifest, which, for example, is where the dimension where the 99 names of Allah exist. Jabbar, I think you were also mentioning Jabarut, where all these 99 essences of Allah, which obviously is one essence, but for us to be able to understand it, broken, Jabbar, break apart to bring together. The 99 essences of Allah, that's the origin of the second the second Lam. The 4th letter, which is Alif, is Lahut, which is the world of Allah, or the reality of Allah as we know it. Now, the interesting part of this is the reality of Allah as we know it. What Allah Ta'ala says in this beautiful hadith is, I am to my servant as he or she imagines me to be. So yes, there is Allah, but then there is an individualized Allah. And that presence of Allah, the way I perceive him, and the way Fatima does, the way Munib does, or Abdullah does, or that all of these perceptions of Allah, and so, for example, in different religions across different cultures, some have perceived him to be the sky, others fire, third, another thing. So a soul, like light. So all of these perceptions of Allah, which are based on our reality, still based on the second alif of alif, lam, lam, alif, the second alif is still based on our perception of Allah and not the truth of Allah, not the whole of Allah, but still my perception of Allah. And my perception of Allah can become as rich as the depth that I am willing to go into within myself. So yes, Allah can be here, Allah can be here, Allah can be here, Allah could be everything. Just depends on the frequency, the vibration that I'm holding in my connection with Allah. And the last ha is Hahut, which is God, which we can never really know definitively. And in simple words, how God is to himself. My mind cannot even go there. How God is to God. That's the Allah part of it. And now, when we, for example, in the last session, we did the zikr of Allah. Allah. Feel how many dimensions we are activating and speaking to and receiving from and connecting to and receiving from in just a one word of Allah. And when you come to the sound of it, they say, is the opening of the heart. Even when you go into your singing and your sound classes, the first task that they give you is open up your lungs and your heart. So you first is the opening of the heart, and the is, and these are the sound of Allah, is the shimmers of the heart. Because remember, Quran was also given as wahi, as tingling, as bells, some say. So shimmers of the heart. And the second, when you say Allah, the second brings the release, relaxes the heart. Because right now, feel into it. Your heart is open, it's expanded, it's connected to the 5 dimensions of the names of Allah, connected to everything seen and unseen, and therefore receiving, fully in the receiving mode of all the tingling wahi of Allah. And now it needs to come back, and that's the second part of A, which is the heart relaxes back. And then the H part of it is relaxing ourselves. The H part, Sufis call it, in this book, they call it the breath of compassion. It's like a traveler which has traveled across many, many timelines, across many, many centuries. And they come back home and they breathe in gratitude and in awareness and in the presence of everything that they have seen and everywhere they've been. And that's Allah, each part. And the U part, when we say Allah, because H is also the beginning of Allahu part, right? So the H is the breath of compassion that we use. And U part is the infinite, how this breath of compassion is an infinite forever circle. Because in Arabic is a circle. So Allah. And when we use this breath, you're not just saying the name of Allah. We are activating frequencies across these 5 dimensions, opening our hearts to receiving the wisdom and gifts from each, bringing it back to our heart and breathing it out aloud, breathing it out in gratitude, in compassion to all there was and all there ever will be. And so when we use Allah, when we have rejected those circumstances, when we use our breath, when we use Allah, it is a constant, beautiful, it's a constant rejection, a nafi and a ha, a nafi and a ha. It is a constant rejection. And in our rejection is the opening. Subhanallah. So how I visualize it when I say Allah who is, as if I am using my breath and using my head to bring, जैसे my teacher says कि जैसे आप एक ज़रब लगा रहे हो अपने हाथ के अपने दिल के ऊपर एक ज़रब लगा रहे हो. So lift your head up, bring it down onto your heart. Zarb lagana. Why zarb lagana? Because your heart will constantly be pulled. It is not in a constant state. We need to guard it. It will constantly be pulled in the day towards this circumstance and that circumstance. And so if it has been pulled, because we are not angels, when it has been pulled, not if, when it has been pulled towards this or this, say there are eggshells which are formed on top of it. और रात को बैठ के या शाम को बैठ के या हर मोमेंट में या उसी लम्हे में आप उस एग शेल के ऊपर, उस शेल के ऊपर एक ज़रब लगाओ ताकि वो फूटे. और जब वो फूटे तो फिर आपका पार्ट ऑफ इट निकल के वापस आए. So I do. मैंने ज़रब लगाया to break the eggshells, that my real heart kind of bursts open from within it. My real heart kind of blossoms from within it. My real heart is Allah. My real heart is my place of all receiving. And so in my having done that zarb, in my having rejected the outside gods and the mini gods that I've given my power away to, I am actually opening my heart to the only Allah, to Haq that there is. And so La ilaha illallah is a complete journey that we are asked to step into, and we do step into in our daily lives. And La ilaha illallah is also tazkiyah nafs, the first part of it, which says reject, release all gods. Only in Allah, only the creator, Khaliqul Bari, Khaliq, the one which creates out of no matter, not musawwir, because it's easy to imitate. When there is nothing, he creates from nothingness. Khaliq. And Bari, the one who creates inimitably, so uniquely, that each thumbprint in 8 billion thumbprints, each thumbprint is unique, subhanallah. And so when we reject all the outside gods, we must understand the God that we want to put down our anchor in. It's like a ship which has been in the sea and it has traveled across all the towns and all the islands. It's met so many people and I've been drawn into, and perhaps momentarily also sat down and lived a life for about 10 or 15 years in one island, on one island. But it still did not, one night you wake up and you hear the sea again, and that's the life of a sailor, and that's our life. You hear the sea again, and yes, you have put down your roots, and yes, you have people that you love, and yes, you have things that you love, and yes, perhaps you built a physical home. Yes to all of those things, but you hear the sea, and the sea says, come back to me. And when that sailor, because that sailor still has not put down its anchors, its ship may have momentarily stayed somewhere for a while, but still has not. Because it knows that the anchor is in the sea. And when the sailors, which are us, choose to remain in the sea, which is the sea of awareness, which is the sea of ourselves, and when we begin to not be afraid of its depths, when we begin to dive into the sea for every answer that we seek, then we will meet other sailors across on the way in that sea. And then the interesting thing is we never have to put down anchors. This is what freedom feels like. When you're constantly forever in the sea and you meet other sailors on the sea, also in a sea, feel the richness of this. When you meet other sailors, do you feel the mutual respect? Because one sailor knows the other. They know it is all momentary. They know that they might come onto their ship and this sailor might go onto their ship for a little while. But they have their own ships and they're supremely supported and supremely sovereign. And some people would call alone, but supremely free on their own. And when these sailors come together onto the sea and they meet, Who are these sailors? They have said La ilaha, rejected all anchors, all the places they say, stay here, stay with me. I will help you. मैं आपकी सिफारिश करूंगा, मैं आपको नौकरी दूंगा, मैं आपको पे चेक दूंगा, मैं आपको रिश्ता दूंगा, मैं आपको प्यार दूंगा, मैं आपको सेफ्टी दूंगा, मैं आपको एक्सेप्टेंस दूंगा, मैं आपको अच्छी तरह से देखूंगा, मैं आपका बहुत ख्याल रखूंगा. All the रिश्ते, all the places, all the moments that we have given our power away to, those sailors have said La ilaha to them and come into the sea. And here they have begun to understand and find their Allah underneath open skies and open waters and in its very depths. And in this sea, they meet other sailors. Subhanallah. And then imagine those relationships. Imagine those rishte. जहां दो खुदा की तलाश में निकले थे, रिजेक्ट करके मिनी गॉड्स को, उन्होंने कहा चलो आओ, अब हम लोग इस सी में, अब वो उस सी में वो लोग मिले हैं जहां सबको अपने अपने रब को तलाश करके उनके साथ बैठने, उनके साथ उनको जानना है, ताकि इन द ब्रीफेस्ट पॉसिबल वे हम लोग उनके रब का रब होने का हक अदा कर सके. And when you meet other people on the same journey, can you imagine how free those relationships? Then you begin to understand why that one sahabi, उनका एक तस्मा टूटा था, वो अल्लाह ताला से बात करते थे. Because why even ask another person? Ask him. La ilaha illallah. And of course, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is, go back to it, and I'm not going to talk about this a lot because can't do justice to it at all because I don't know him well enough. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq to get to know that one human being who was enabled, the only human being who was enabled to be able to carry, his heart was enabled to be able to feel the depth of Allah's presence. Subhanallah. And yeah, so La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, if we can bring that into our awareness. And I started doing that very recently, maybe just a week ago. I wake up in the morning, I open my eyes, and I remind myself, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. I have not yet been given the gift of remembering it at night, and may Allah Ta'ala give me the gift, and all of us, to be able to remember it more often, not just Subah or Sham, but more often during the day, and especially as we reject things. Because, all of us will be forever constantly be given opportunities where we can take shortcuts, where we can find pleasure and say yes to our desires. क्या हो जाएगा, थोड़ी देर के लिए वापस आ जाऊंगी बाद में. Say yes to this, say yes to that. So easy. It is so easy. It's so acceptable in the culture and the society. It's so easy. But in those microseconds, and I know all of us have felt this, in those microseconds before, say, and this is a constant struggle for me. Many aspects of it, I'm just going to give you one aspect. I like this. I want this. No, I cannot have this. This is not right for me. Allah Ta'ala give me what's right for me. Microseconds. This entire journey is La ilaha illallah. Subhanallah, this entire journey, because I have given the opportunity. If I do it, nobody will know. Nobody. If I do this, nobody will know. I can get away with it. I don't want to do it. Why? Because illallah. I reject this. I reject this God. I reject this pseudo power-giving mechanism. Because I say yes. In my rejection, I say yes to Allah. And in every time that we reject something that is not in sync with our Allah vibration, there is like a full applause session that happens in the angelic universe. And I'll tell you why I say this, because it's just one ayah that I'm going to leave you this with. This is Surah Fussilat, ayah 30. And I'll read the translation, which is, or Arabic also, why not? Sawab milega. Innal lazina qalu rabbuna Allah summa istaqamu tanazzalu alayhimul malaikatu alla takhafu wala tahsanu wa abshiru bil jannati allati kuntum ta'udun. And so it says, our Lord is Allah. And then remain steadfast. The angels descend upon them, saying, do not fear, do not grieve, rather rejoice in the good news of paradise which you have been promised. This is not in the Akhirah, you know. Every time you reject, every time you reject something, every time you reject a false God, in every decision that we make in our relationships, even for example, of controlling your gussa, of not, of not being batameez with your parents, for example. Whatever it is. They're all my personal struggles that I'm, of course, sharing with you. In that moment, what's happening in the realm is Tanya, of course, and also a certificate of, okay, one more reason for to send this person into Jannah. And so in every rejection of a mini God, we accept our God. It is the entire faith that we are living. Being a Muslim does not have to be something that we take the ifs of or the benefit of at the end of our lifetime. Being a Muslim can be in every moment that we choose to say no. Do something outside us which is not aligned to us, which is not aligned to the haqq of Allah. And may all of us, inshallah, Ameen, be given the ability, more than giving the ability, I like the word enabled, and activated for us to be able to receive this strength and this courage. And so we take our power back through this kalima. In our rejection of many gods, we already have our power back. In our rejection of many gods, we already have our power back. All we have to, so say no for a deeper yes within you. We say no to say yes to a deeper yes. Subhanallah. Okay, so Subhanallah, yes. Okay, so there's some questions here. Are there? No, did I imagine? Okay, I must have. So we can just say dua. Ameen, Maliha, and Subhanallah, absolutely. I can't say kalma as I don't know if it's true. Subhanallah, very beautiful. Don't want this session to end. Allah Ta'ala keh rahe hain, relax kare, bhage yahan se sare apne ghar jaye, because I'm here now. I don't know where I was. So we can say dua together. Sa'azubillah minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. La ilaha illallah. Before I start the dua, there's one thing that I haven't yet asked. I haven't done myself. But I was reading in the same book, Physicians of the Heart, that in the olden times, at the time that Quran used to be inscribed in light writing, illumination, art of illumination, jise kehte hain, the apprentices used to be given a task that they had to do for years. And that was their meditation and their training. And the task was writing the name of Allah over and over and over and over again. And what is said is, in this act of meditation, of writing the name of Allah, mere dil mein hai, mere dimag mein maine kiya nahi hai, over and over and over again, takes you into the deeper dimension of that name, which is not a name, it's a frequency. Allah is not a name, Allah is a frequency. And because it is Allah's frequency, it exists in different dimensions. And so maybe if you want to practice writing the name of Allah and see, and I would love for us to share, please, what is given to us as a gift of falling into the depths of writing that name over and over again. And so, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, Zubillahi min shaitanir rajeem, Bismillahir rahmanir rahim, Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. يا رحمن يا رحيم يا رحمن يا رحيم يا رحمن يا رحيم. Steady us, steady our hearts, steady our breath, steady our iman, steady our mind, steady our thoughts, steady our hands, steady our eyes, steady our feet, steady our ears, steady our qalb, so that we do not stray too far away from you, Ya Allah. हमारी आप रस्सी बहुत छोटी रखें प्लीज, बहुत छोटी, लाइक एक्चुअली ऐसे रखें कि जैसे अगर हमने बंधा हुआ है आपके साथ, तो हमारी गर्दन के साथ अगर रस्सी है तो उसका मतलब 1 इंच शायद हो प्लीज, ज़्यादा उससे ज़्यादा मत रखना, बिकॉज we have wandered too long and we have strayed too far for too long, and we don't want to go that far away anymore, and so keep us very, very close to you. La ilaha illallah. No matter what, la ilaha illallah. Keep us close to you, Ya Allah. Keep us close in a way that सुबह भी आप ही हमें उठाएं, ठीक है, और रात को भी आप भी हमें सुनाएं, और अगर हम रो रहे हैं तो आप पास भी आप ही पहुंचें, और अगर डर लग रहा है तो आप ही तसल्ली दें, और अगर अकेले हैं तो आप भी हाथ पकड़ें, और अगर दिल डूब रहे हैं तो आप भी संभालें. Keep us close and take care of us, Ya Allah, because we will never be capable of taking care of ourselves. And so all we can do from our end is to ask you to keep us close to you and do the best that we can to stay close to you. And you just take care of the rest, Ya Allah. And we ask you for the same for our children, Ya Allah, for our spouses, for our partners, for our parents, for our friends, for our relatives, for our neighbors, for strangers, people in faraway places, people in nearby places, people we know, people we don't know. Just give your rahmat ki barish to everybody, upon everybody, because there's not a single heart that's not parched, and there's not a single heart that's not thirsty, and there's not a single heart that is not in need of your rahmat, and there's not a single heart that will ever not be in need of your rahmat. And so our asri and insan lafi khusri will forever be in loss. Our hearts forever are in loss. So keep us close so that we feel full. Keep us close so we feel real. And keep us close so we feel loved and nourished by you, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. In your rahmat and in the rahmat of my Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala Ibrahim. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala Ibrahim.